Getting back on this Oliver Super 88 project. Trying to remember how all this stuff goes back together. I was able to find a diagram of a 77 parts book on internetarchive.org, I think it's called. And so I think I figured out mostly how it goes together based on this. Had to get a replacement of this. I forget what they call that. But this part, clutch disc, I think it is, or something weird name. On the old one, the bearing had been spinning on there forever. And I guess I probably could have welded it up and turned it back down on the lathe, but I was able to find a used one for 50 bucks. This is part number, I thought it started with a, yeah, K1585. I just jumped online, typed in the part number, and lo and behold, Wanger Tractor Parts had it. One already pulled off, so it's like 50 bucks, might as well just buy it. So the bearing that goes on here was this one, which is worn and noisy and shot. It has a seal on one side, like a Z seal, metal seal. Yeah, it's kind of almost like fiber in there. I was only able to find an open bearing because I think this all rides in gear oil anyway, so the open bearing was part number 107, so we'll use that. The big bearing with the flange is this, was the old number was as a Fafner 208 KDG. It was kind of noisy. So the new one is 6208Z. This is a Koyo Japan bearing, and it has, this side says 6208N 22-1612. I don't know, but it has a snap ring. I think I got this from some really helpful folks, Corvez Oliver, Korves. They supply a lot of parts. They manufacture a lot of Oliver parts, and got in touch with a guy there. It was really helpful. Because I had ordered some of this stuff before I found him, I ordered some of this stuff, like these clutch discs from, I think it was Allstate's Ag Parts or Steiner or whatever. And then I found him because I needed the springs, the disengagement springs. They were all, well, one was missing, the rest were smashed and possibly maybe they're broken. I don't know. They don't look like they're broken, but they are collapsed. So I needed those, and he says, well, what about your shim pack? And I said, what do I said, yeah, I don't know, I didn't find anything in any manual about a shim pack or how to set it. And he says, well, the lever, the engagement lever, the long lever, he said you want 30 pounds pulling that into engagement, 30 pounds over center to engage it. So I'll use like I'll try to use a scale to set it up, like a suitcase scale when you go traveling, little one with a handle on it. So I said, well, give me a fresh shim pack. Let's just make sure I start from new. We've got new clutches. I guess we'll start from new shim pack. I suppose these discs and stuff are worn, but I wasn't going to sit and try to cut these out and add to the old ones. I should get, let me get a caliper. just to let everybody know what a brand new shim pack is. It is, yeah, it's pretty close. It's almost going to 0. It's pretty close. 125. So 125 thousandths is 1/8 inch. That's a brand new shim pack. Curious what my old ones are. Of course, I didn't know what the new ones would be. Yeah, they're about 1/8. They're also around 125. They may have never had a shim removed, but I didn't know. So I just started with a new shim pack, because if I had to add to it, that would really be tedious to try and cut something like that out of brass shim stock. I probably don't have anyway. I think these were like 50, 60 bucks though. Came with 4. I don't know why. Must be a set that includes several different tractors. Oh, actually, this thing, they call it a clutch sleeve. This came off a 1600, it says. Huh. 2008 they pulled that part. That was collecting dust on the shelf for a while. So the seal that goes in here was a K1588, K1588. That's getting replaced with a 410496, 410 496, which is a modern, you know, this is an old leather seal. We'll put a modern, actually this is a double lip, 2.5 inch shaft, 3.350 inches OD, 468 thousandths width. Says right on there. This came from O'Reilly's Master Pro, that's their brand, but I'm sure it's reboxed from whoever, NAK, whatever that is. Okay, so the small seal that goes in here, remember if I had a part, yeah, the old one was a K1590, so CR Chicago Rawhide K1590. I think that crossed right over to 473, 436. National 473, 436. Okay, so that's O'Reilly's part number is the same. On the seal, it says TCM 134213 SB, B as in boy, -H. So TCM, another seal manufacturer. I don't know who that is. Kind of wasn't sure about this bronze clutch engagement bushing thing. I talked with the guy at Corvus, and he says, well, is it intact? I said, what do you mean? He says, well, does it look like it's all kind of there? I said, yeah, it looks, you know, worn, but looked like it hadn't been greased in 200 years. But basically, he said, when they're shot, they're like, this will be completely worn away. And I've got quite a bit of meat there. I remember on Allstate Egg Parts or Steiner, one of the websites mentions this part, and it gives some measurements. And now I can't remember, but it gives measurements. I think of the gap in here, and this one was only 20 thousandths or so off. I think the original was like a brand new one. The gap is Yeah, I think a brand new one. It seems like the gap was like 355 thousandths, according to that website. I'm not sure why they listed that, but that was pretty nice. This one's 335 thousandths, so we're 20 thousandths reduced from wear. This thing's like 180 bucks or something, $150. It's pretty expensive, so. There are flats worn on here, but it's, you know, it should be round, but I guess it should be round. First one I've had apart, so I don't know, but it looks like there's some wear on that, but all in all, I think it'll be okay. So I think what I'll do here, I'm trying to remember all this stuff goes together, but this has to slide down. This is the end that sticks out of the back of the tractor. This bearing was fine. There's a snap ring here, bearing, bushing I think they call it, or sleeve, or spacer actually. That's what the seal rides on, this little seal. And that's in good shape. And there's another snap ring there. And then our clutch discs, you can see where they've been riding there. Heart skipped a beat there for a minute. I thought maybe I got the wrong splines. Just a tight fit. Maybe we should check that before I think I'm going to put it together. But so this has to go slide down the shaft, and then it'll get, I guess, bolted to that. Meanwhile, it's retained with this clutch sleeve retainer, I think they called it. Along with this big, wait a minute, it goes like that. So that's going to go on there like that and get bolted to the tractor. Wait a minute. Yeah, this big bearing goes in here. Big bearing gear with the relief cut in there, goes in there. This bearing was on there, the old one. By the way, it looks like the sealed surface was out. So that'll go on, then the snap ring retainer. So we got a kind of a sequence here to follow. So I think what we'll do is we'll press this sleeve, the seal in here. These are always fun to press in because they never seem to want to go in square. Okay, we'll run over to the press and put that in. We got our seal retainer here. And seal goes in with the open side first, lip out, I guess you could say. So, someday I'm going to hook the electric pump up for this. But not today. I have a press, so you can just carefully tap it in with a hammer. I've done that many times. Sometimes there's just too much junk in front of the press and I don't want to move all of it. I just pound it in with a hammer. So that'll go on there. Seal goes there. This, you definitely want to put this channel down so the oil drains back in. There's a little hole drilled in the machine. All right. It's got some oil in there. I think that went like that. And this basically just pushes against that. Let's see here. I gotta double check that. I want to make sure I get everything right. Yeah, the snap ring is spaced towards this retainer. Right. Just putting some regular oil on here. Whatever I got, 30 weight non-detergent, just something in the squirt can. Okay. So that just pretty much stays there and is always spinning with this clutch sleeve. Our new bearing goes on. We'll probably have to press that. Nope, just barely a slip fit. I did clean this sleeve up a little bit. It had some rust and stuff on it. I could, yeah, that is loose too. This one may have had the same problem as the other one. But it'll be better than that one. That's what I'll do is Loctite. Use 609 Loctite, sleeve Loctite, to lock that bearing inner race to this sleeve so that it's not spinning. Clean rag, cleaner. Definitely has to be degreased and cleaned with Loctite to make Loctite work. we'll use a little Loctite primer. Basically acetone with ultra fine shavings of brass. The brass helps Loctite to accelerate the cure. Also, basically cures in the absence of oxygen. So basically only when it's sort of pressed together. Now I'll put some on the bearing, and probably not on there because I don't want it to go down into those splines. Kind of just spread it around in there. It's going to wipe a lot off on this upper surface, but it'll carry enough in there to get the job done. Okay, there's that. Got to use this special inside snap ring pliers again. This is an old Utica 534, and it has like knurling right there to hold this ring. Now this ring is worn. They didn't have a new one of these, so it's kind of worn on one side where it's been rubbing on the bearing. I guess I'll just flip it over and put the fresh side to the bearing. Okay. That is our stack up of parts right there. Actually, okay. It's looking good so far. We'll let that bearing sit and take a few minutes to cure. I guess I can slide it on over the shaft. Put all this on here. Basically, I think we'll just, there, that just kind of slides in. It's sort of a slip fit. And I'll have to tap the bearing in there. That one I probably will want to tap in with a hammer. And the seal already has some sort of sealant on this outside. The blue stuff is like a sealant. Sometimes I Loctite them in there, but I think with this one, since we've got the inner spring that is the seal retainer, I guess, spring, compression spring, put a little grease inside here so that when I'm tapping on it with a hammer, that spring doesn't come off. I've had it happen before. I've of course been told by experienced mechanics to put some grease in there if you're planning on pounding a seal in with a hammer or whatever. You got to put some grease in there to hold that spring in place so it doesn't come flying off. Because it can come off, and that may cause problems in your mechanism. If it doesn't, it's certainly going to reduce the effectiveness of the seal. For something of a zoom here. Alright, gotta get a little hammer. Soft face hammer. Hopefully I can get this in there without it getting completely cocked off to the side. Huh, went in pretty easily. I guess Murphy wasn't looking this time. Yep, so we're riding on that seal surface in there. We could bring it below flush. I think that probably wouldn't be the end of the world. Really, you'd have to use a punch. I don't know if it's bottomed out yet or not. I'll just get a little punch and double check. Of course, I don't remember where it was originally. There's definitely in there now. Lip is riding on this bushing surface. All right, the shaft I think is ready to go back in. Let's see if we can thread the needle here. Obviously this front spline goes up into the flywheel somewhere. The second spline is running live hydraulics, I believe. I can actually see in there with a flashlight. To get our drain area, or little slot in this retainer. There's a slot needs to be at the bottom so that the oil drains back through that little hole. So we'll put our notch part down. If there's any luck, this stuff will all fit. To keep that gasket up and in place so that it doesn't get sheared by something. Okay, now our big bearing is starting to go in. Big bearing is going into this housing, and I've got still a half inch or so gap here. I think I'll start a screw so that gasket stops dancing around. These are 3/8 by, looks like 3/8 by 1 inch. Coarse thread with a lock washer. It's hard to see, we got a lot of shadowing here, but tight, but it does start. That one doesn't quite want to get there yet. That one's not quite there yet either. Alright, those all started now. Yeah, about 1/8 of an inch left. Just about there. Now we can just draw it up the rest of the way with the bolts. Those are some funky bolts to get into there. Can't really get on them with a socket. I think that's why they're all kind of rounded and buggered a little bit, because somebody else has been in here before me. Okay, so there's our clutch sleeve. I wasn't sure where this would sit, either if the shaft was going in and out a little bit or not. So maybe I should have left that seal at flush, but it seems to be okay. That was really tough to get to with the toolbox in the way. And if I could get see if I can grab a little shorter wrench. Or yeah, nothing. I think if you probably ground the end off the box end of some wrench, you could probably get it in there. But I haven't ground the end of one of those off yet, or if I did, I can't find it. Looks like it should be easy, but it's kind of hard to get a wrench in there. Suppose you could use a crow's foot. Maybe I could try a crow's foot. Just get a little final torque on it. These are some old crow's foots that I bought many years ago from this tool place that shall remain unnamed. Someday I'll get a good set. For now, this is working. Okay, so we got all that in place. Everything turns nicely. So the guy at Corvus, Oliver, asked me if I marked these two before I took it apart. And I said, well, yes, of course, officer, I did. And I do remember marking it because I thought, why not? And anyway, he said there is some importance to keeping these two aligned. So I don't know. As far as going on this, I don't think that matters. Pretty sure that just goes like that. And I do have a diagram for that, which has been kind of helpful. Not really sure if you can see that. Wish I had a monitor. A lot of these GoPro cameras don't have great macro function, but that's fine for what I do. So those are the 4 fine thread bolts. I don't know what number 44 is. I don't know whatever it is, I never took that off. Not on this machine anyway. I can check real quick. What do they call that? It looks like a locking disc, like it looks like one of those that you'd bend the tang up onto the flat of the hex of the bolt to keep it from unscrewing because it's spinning like crazy. Alright, so the parts manual calls 44 a lock washer, and it said in the manual that it replaces shake-proof lock washer, which would be a star washer, internal star, I believe. These look like the type that you bend the tangs over though. But irregardless, I know it came out of there, which was 3/8 fine thread. Looks like 3/8 by 7/8, maybe 3/4. Yeah, 3/8 by 3/4 fine thread with a split lock. They look like grade 5. 3 marks on the head, +2. Every bolt is at least a grade 2. So 3 marks +2 is 5, grade 5. If there are no marks, then they're grade 2 from the hardware store, and they're butter bolts, and I wouldn't use them, but a lot of people do. Usually they'll just have like 3 letters on there, which helps the cashier identify what they are. But I try to not use butter bolts. I have a few around here. They seem to find their way into the tool, into the bolt bin. I'm going to get the impact for that. I don't know what the actual torque would be if the manual even listed it, but 25 to 30 probably. Make sure that's spinning. Looks fairly even. This thing is old, worn out, not brushless. It doesn't create a tremendous amount of torque. So I'm not too worried about breaking stuff off. All right. I remember when I took this off, this spline protrudes from one side. And I would say that has to go in on this one because there's quite an indentation there. It's been a while, so I can't exactly remember. But that works. All right, then we've got our intermediate or middle, I guess, pressure plate, disc, clutch disc. We've got another one of these. Now, the question is, where does that, of course I don't remember from taking it apart. Looks like it can go either way. Let's see, we have evidence on here of where it was. No. Oh, that won't work that way. It actually, when you put it on that with this first, it won't go all the way. It's actually got like 1/8 of an inch gap in there. So, has to go this way. And there, now it is completely touching against that center disc. And you can see kind of the evidence of the old wear too. Would suggest that it went there way back when. So then we have these spring sort of things, and if you're curious what they are, they're compression springs, if you're ever looking for some. If they were this, they'd be an extension spring. So unsprung. Yeah, they're basically just under an inch, 15/16, or about 970 thousandths, 965. OD is 160, 161. I don't know if I can get the wire diameter. Hard to get in there. The ends are ground flat, so kind of only guessing. Well, maybe I can go this way. Uh, 31 thousandths, maybe. 33 thousandths wire diameter, somewhere around that. They're fairly stiff. You're not going to find them at the hardware store. Probably better to just order them from Corvus Oliver. Now I think they're just going to go in here. Just twist them in until they seat. I don't know if I should have seated them into the bottom disc first. I don't think it matters. Yeah, maybe. think they'll find their home. They just kind of, the outside diameter is just right to go in that hole and kind of wedge itself. Yeah, I didn't make any marks on this. Now, let's see if we can get all this stuff to go in here. Might be doing this a little bit wrong. Doesn't quite want to fit in there. Which might suggest that it was in a different clocking. It's tight too. All tight. That seems better. I don't know, maybe it was there all those years. Oh no. See, that doesn't want to line up there. Hard to imagine that they'd make that in such a way that it only goes on one way. It's been balanced here, but it likes that. Yep. It really likes that. All right. Springs are all lined up. Where's their flashlight? It's probably blurry. Anyway, that one needs to fit into that hole a little better. It's not quite in there. There. Now it's starting to go, maybe what I'll do is get this other disc, this last disc, pressure plate thing, whatever, started. Get some pressure on it and then start trying to make it line up. So here's my mark and there's my mark, and that's where our shim packs will go. Can't slide them in afterwards, so they have to go in. They have to go on with the bolts. The bolts are 5/16 fine. That's an IH bolt. What the hell's that doing in here? So 750. So 5/16 fine thread by 3/4 long with a lock washer. We'll get 2 of those. Get up. Yeah, that's a Rockford bolt there. That's an IH bolt. Interesting. Must have been in a shop somewhere a long time ago and had a whole mix of bolts floating around, I suppose. Can't say as I would have done any different. Get that in. That needs to come out. That's better. Two more bolts. I think I'll run these long legs all the same way. Sort of longer, and I'll just put them all the same. It's kind of frightening. See if it's just, it looks straight. It's going in, it's just got a little booger on the threads or something, I guess. I guess I could probably use some modern technology and use a socket or something. No point doing everything the hard way. 5/16 fine thread. They're probably 18 foot-pounds or something. That is rubbing. And yeah, we are fully disengaged and it's dragging. New clutch discs. I should have measured those, but don't know what they're supposed to be anyway. But that's probably not going to work that way. I bet this is going to take a lot of force. You wouldn't think you'd need more than a full clutch pack, but I'm not sure what quality control is on those clutch discs. They could be just slightly thicker than the old ones were. Unless I've got something together wrong here, but I don't think so. know those little springs are not quite all seated in there. All right, these laminations are about 7/1000ths. So I do 1, 2, 3, 4. 28. Why don't we try 4 laminations on each? We'll keep them all even. My eyes aren't as good as they used to be. And neither is this caliper. This thing does not want to go back to 0 every time. So I'm probably headed for 20 years, so I should probably buy another one. There it went to 0. Okay, that's probably... Four. All right. 1, 2. 3, 4. I think. Yep. 28. Okay, so we got 40-some thousandths left over. Yeah. Not quite right. Yeah, let's buzz these all loose. That's that tight one. Oh, they're all tight. Probably a little bit off. Let's take, no, I don't want to take all the bolts out though. Jeez, that's really tight. Alright, put one in there. Oops. There. Oh, those are tight in there. Oh, yeah, I gotta push in on it. That doesn't work either. Alrighty, now it turns. I mean, doesn't seem to be, doesn't have much drag. But the question is, how much force is it going to take to get that over? I guess at this point, might as well put the cover on. And we got to put this on for a bearing, clutch release bearing, whatever they call it. Put that on there. Obviously the greaser has to go out. It's kind of worn in such a way like it's been pushing. So it's got to go that way. It just has to. All right, so that's going to go like that. I think that's how it was in the cover. There's a flip keyhole to grease this, which nobody ever did. And that's just a through bolt, no threads in there. And that was these two 5/16 fine by 1 3/4 long. Huh. No markings on the head. I don't know if those are butter bolts or what they are. With nylocks. Those are nylock washers with the little nylon in there to keep them from coming apart. Rather, if they loosen, they won't fall off. Suppose I could put a little grease in there, just on the off chance that I don't have to take it apart again. That would be lucky. Seems like you could, man, with that grease zerk that way, you could really get carried away with grease in here. And that would get into your clutch disc linings. But I don't know. How much is too much? Okay, so our thinnest area is out and out. Now for the big bell. how you're supposed to know that you got those two forks engaged. Let's try something different here. Must be a technique to this. Something. I think it went on there. Aha, I know this one went in. Ah, and that one went in too. And there's the grease zerk. Alright. So I get some light back on this. I wish I knew what angle this camera was at. Just for good measures, we'll record with both. Alright, so the bolts we have left. Run out of bolts, so that's good. These are all 3/8 coarse by, it looks like 1 inch. I think these went down below. Maybe. Somewhere. There we go. So I'm thinking with these, yeah, this bolt doesn't do anything. So it's just the bottom 4. Now I didn't put the seal in either, which is just a piece of hose. But the old one was a piece of hose too. So that last one went on that side as a catch or a pawl stop for the that one. Yeah, that one goes in here. I gotta fix that too, because that's all kind of ganked up. Alright. Oh, that's kind of tight there. A little extension in there. It's one of my old extensions that I don't mind using an impact with. Okay. Ooh. Works. Okay. Now I gotta find my